today to our guest, Clifford W DeSilva. The Secret Life of Clifford W DeSilva, editor, psychologist, and much more. Clifford's claims to fame are manifold. So he has been an editor of one book, as he shared with me recently. He has been a author of two books, and he's also been a co-author of other books, which he doesn't want to mention, which we'll ask him about later. Apart from that, he practices psychology and he runs the Goa Institute of, correct me with the name, Goa Institute of
Counseling.
Counseling at Naveli. So, Clifford, we are talking to you at Naveli, right, at the moment?
Yes. Yep.
Fine, fine. And he's been a Jesuit for some time. He was studying to become a Jesuit, and he's also edited this very interesting book on a biography on the life of Anthony DeMello. More about that later. Clifford, tell us your story. Tell us about your books to start with.
Okay. I was a good friend of Tony DeMello, and he was pretty well known in many parts of the world, especially United States, but also South America and other places, because he had done his philosophy in Spain, and he told me how he gave something in Spain, a program in Spain, and he had a translator. He said, but by the end of the first morning, he had got back his Spanish. So then, since he was also familiar with Spanish, he got called to many South American countries.
Before we get into the details, sorry for
Yeah,
the interruption.
yeah, yeah.
So,
See,
so Anthony de Mello was this prominent Jesuit of Goan origin who was famed for his retreats in the US and a powerful speaker at that. He passed away quite suddenly. His views were a little bit unorthodox, if we could say, to use a mild word, a little bit controversial also, but an amazing man. And Tony will carry on with his story. Sorry, I mean Cliff will carry on with his story. Cliff, carry on. Yeah, carry on. Hello. Cliff, I have a slight problem to hear you. Can you hear me? I think you're freezing. We are having a slight glitch, but we will resume. Hello.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now you're fine. Carry on. Carry on.
Speaking of Goan origin, his father was from uh, Salvador the Moon. Uh, I think there's a place called Salvador the Moon, and his mother is from Sangolda.
Your brain does what you tell it to do. You're
I
the
can hear
boss. Tell it. AI is going to
from
be a
Salvador.
billion
It's a long.
topics like happiness, right?
Sorry for that. Sorry for that.
No problem.
Carry on. Carry on. Carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. So how I got into editing was I happened to see a website that was written by his brother Bill. And I messaged him that I know his brother and so on, but he never responded to that. And many years later, happened to come across that website again, and I contacted him. And he told me that he had never received my message to him earlier. And then he told me he's writing this or attempting to write this, the biography of his brother. And he asked me if I'd like to get involved, and of course I said yes. Then I can't hear you.
Could you give us an introduction to Anthony de Mello first?
Okay. Uh, Anthony DeMello was a priest who rose to fame somewhere late in the late 60s, I met him in 1971 after I'd finished my novitiate and juniorate and had gone to Bombay to learn Marathi language. And he was the rector of that place. But prior to that, he had been to Spain for his philosophy, and he had been to America to learn. He was at Loyola University to learn counseling and spirituality. And he came. He was at that time quite famous for his long retreat, the Jesuit long retreat, the Ignatian long retreat. He was also coming up as he had different ideas. The This was after Vatican II, but there were things that were very closed still. Like in the society, they had like something called particular friendship. You could not have a particular friendship. You could not have a special friend. Would you believe it? They also had the rule of touch, where you never touched anybody ever, except under appropriate, like a handshake, or there would be the amplexus when you embrace someone, like usually priests, when the priest at the priest ordination, you still see that amplexus. So he was beginning to think of how he found that people were very stuck. Now, how could he make spirituality a little bit more, let's say, palatable? All those
Fine.
rules and
So if anyone has just joined us, Clifford DeSilva is introducing us to his friend and his senior, Anthony DeMello, who was a young Jesuit in the 70s. And the context is this Catholic Church, which is post Vatican Council II, but is still quite conservative and still quite reticent about what it allows, what it doesn't allow. And Clifford is just encountering Anthony, who later on passes away, and whose work Clifford edits. But we are running ahead of a story, so I'll give it over to Clifford to introduce Anthony better. He's of Goan origin, but very little known back home, right?
yeah.
Carry on, carry on.
Yeah. So actually, it was not the society was still a little bit conservative, but a lot of things had opened up. Okay, priests were allowed to leave, for example, and there were even bishops and cardinals and all leaving at that time. That was quite common. Provincials in the Society of Jesus were leaving, but that's not the point. The point is that he was looking. He was always a spirituality person. How to make spirituality available to all, basically enlightenment. So he was always searching that. He was famous for his already famous for his Ignatian retreats. Even when I met him, he was like he used to be called to Hong Kong or uh, United States to give a retreat, maybe a 3-day retreat, maybe an 8-day retreat, and once or twice a long retreat also. But he had this idea of forming something called Sadhana, which still exists now. But Sadhana initially started as it was a spirituality center. Uh, it was different. It it he wanted to make sure that people had you know become human, so there would be relationships, and all the all the pills, you could say, the the torment that goes with relationships. you know it just it's not just husband and wife relationship where there is, which is difficult. Even two
Cliff, Cliff,
friends in a
Cliff,
relationship
Cliff. Sorry,
in to
sorry,
denominator
sorry for interrupting.
foundation for
Cliff,
purpose, along with mandala to give.
Cliff, sorry for interrupting. There is a bit
Yeah,
of a glitch on the sound. Do you have too many windows or something open on your computer by any chance? Too many tabs opened?
Windows,
Tabs in your
nothing.
browser?
I could
If
no,
you can
nothing is open because You mean close all other?
Yeah.
I
If you
mean,
don't mind.
if I close Windows, I won't be able to
No,
contact you,
just
right?
just the tabs which are not related to this studio. You can close the other tabs.
Ah, okay, okay. Like say my mail and all that.
Yeah. If you don't
Okay,
mind.
I'll close
See,
it.
because the sound was coming okay, then we had a little bit of a glitch when you were talking about him adopting sadhana and the relationships. You were explaining that part, and I kind of lost you because the sound went a bit slow. So if you could
Okay.
just repeat that, I'll be grateful. Sorry about all these glitches that are
No, no.
happening.
In fact, I would wish you to interrupt. I feel even I'm getting bored with what I'm saying here.
No, now the sound is coming perfect, so there's no
Okay,
reason to
I've
interrupt.
closed my my mail and stuff like that.
It's yeah, now it's sounding perfect. So if you can
Huh.
just restart from the portion where you were mentioning his involvement with sadhana and relationship.
Sadhana. Okay. Yeah. So he conceived the idea of sadhana maybe about the time when he was the rector of Vinayalaya, and in 72 he laid the groundwork for it. 73 he began. The first batch consisted of uh, a small group of about 15 or 16 people, and I think there were also one or two nuns, maybe in the next batch. But these are people selected. They were already retreat preachers and so on. But what was different was he was much into Gestalt psychology. So he was using Gestalt therapy a lot to help people get over their personal problems. Hang-ups, unfinished business that we say in Gestalt therapy and stuff like that. But it was essentially a spirituality program mixed with a lot of taking advantage of all therapy that is available. He was himself just getting familiar with Gestalt therapy. He never did any course or anything in America. He must have studied person-centered therapy, and this he was reading on his own and working it out, experimenting. He would experiment with all of us and so on. And then he was obviously brilliant because he had got the thing. In fact, I attended in 73 of May, a 10-day kind of a program where every morning we would have, whole morning we'll have this group dynamics kind of thing from Gestalt therapy, which was an amazing experience for me.
Explain
And
Gestalt therapy.
explain Gestalt therapy. Gestalt
Yeah, in
therapy
brief.
was founded by Frederick. He had a lot of Eastern background. I think he was a German Jew who came to America before the war, Second World War, and it was different from psychoanalysis because he never delved much into the past and so on. He dealt with the present. That's why it's known as one of the existential therapies. There's the humanistic, which Carl Rogers, and existential. They're usually humanistic stroke existential therapies. So I'll give you an example of how he would solve problems. A man who came to him, violinist, didn't play after an hour or so. He couldn't play. He was a concert violinist, and he didn't go into. A psychoanalyst would go into a lot of yeah. He would go into a lot of theory, background, childhood, some complex, and so on. He just told him to bring his violin and play it. And when he was playing it, he just moved his elbow a little bit in like that and said, carry on. And that problem had stopped. So sometimes it was like a simple solution. He would just work on your feelings rather than go into a lot of theory and complex and what your childhood and so on and so forth. What are you feeling right now? Work with that. And he had
Interesting.
something interesting called the empty chair therapy. Where he would get you to speak to the person you had a problem with in an empty chair in front of you and then go and be the other person. It gets too technical to explain that. But he was doing a lot of that. Tony was doing a lot of this with this group. Okay, then
Yeah.
later he was. I left the society in 1979 and I never met him again till in 1986 he died. I never met him after 1979. But we were always in touch through letters and so on. In those days, there was not even phone calls. I didn't have a phone. I was in the queue for 7 years for a landline, you know. But we corresponded, and then he died suddenly in America on the day before he was to give a program there. But he had already given one which he called Awareness, which was made into a book. and his videos and tapes are to be found online freely. I think
And
even
then
on
you all
YouTube.
edited this book. You edited this book
So
written by his
his
brother.
brother got involved with this. So his brother got me involved with the book, and after we had done it, he sent it to some people in America, and that person said, "You know what? This lady was ready to get it done, but she said this book would have to be edited, and that would have been about to edit. Somebody just to edit the book was charging something like $5,000 or something like that. I don't remember the figures. So Bill asked me whether I would edit it. So I thought, what's the big deal about editing it? We had done it anyway. I had done the editing. It's just that now this lady wanted to edit it further. So we said, let's get it done in. We'll ask Gujarat Sahitya Prakash after I edited it whether they would accept it. And they did. What I did was not a great thing. What I did was there was all these stories from various people that Bill had collected. We had to put into some semblance of order. That's all. So we made the chapters. Some chapters were too large. I divided them to two. We got some chronology in, and we got special chapters done only towards his spirituality. Then Tony DeMello as a person, what was he like? So that was basically it. I mean, what else? Writing a biography is pretty easy when we had that much of material from people, and there was enough. We had enough of his companions who were alive who could give us information. So that was it.
But he's an amazing person in the sense that he wrote a lot, he preached a lot. His uh, his uh, his retreats were highly valued even in the US, which of course is a mark of acceptance today for us also, unfortunately.
Yes.
And yeah, his books were amazing. I have before me just one of his many books, and sad to say that we came to know of him only after his death and his passing and
Hmm.
things like that. The Prayer of a Frog. And would you think that Goa recognizes his legacy and understands him at all?
I wouldn't know, and I'm not really interested, and I don't think he
Beyond
would be
Goa?
either. Why propagate him? The book, even the book. You said sad that we saw him, met him only after we found his book only after he is alive. What difference would it have made if he were alive? What difference would it have made to
Yeah.
you?
No, my issue is that Goa is a society which values its people once they are 6 feet under. So I have a problem with that. Anyway, your question is valid also. Your question is also valid.
Yeah, because see, what is more important is, I met somebody who says, "Is there any other book of Tony DeMello that you have or that you know of which I have not read?" I said, "Why do you want to read so many books? It's important that you get, you're looking for enlightenment. Enlightenment is important. Enlightenment is important, not the book. Burn the
So you're
book.
saying
One of his
you're
stories, he
saying
has this. Once you've done with it, burn the book. I don't
you're
know if you
saying we
heard the
should
name
not be
of that.
consumerist.
Have you
We
have
should
you heard
not be
that? Heard
consumerist.
of a sorry?
You're saying we should not be consumerist even in our search for enlightenment, especially in our search for enlightenment.
See, being enlightened doesn't mean that you're the same. You're not anything different if you're an enlightened person. The enlightened person was asked, how was life before enlightenment? He said, I sing, I draw water from the well, I chop wood. And they said, after enlightenment, he said, I sing, I draw water from the well, I chop wood. There's just a difference inside.
So he
So
had all these short stories and parables through which he would make his point, right,
yeah, and I
Tony?
believe that very strongly. That's why the book I wrote, Not a Serpent, Not a Rope, I went further than him. I just gave the story. I said, I'm not going to give a moral. You're spoiling it by giving a moral because the story can be read in any way by any person at any time. It may he or she might get the point of that story maybe after 5 years. I myself got the
Yeah.
point of a story after many years or many months. Why do I?
I
Who am I? Who am I to? Why should I chew it and give it to you
I
and put it in your mouth?
I don't intend to rake up controversy here, but we journalists love sometimes a good fight. And what I'm trying to understand is what caused this dispute between him and the Vatican. Was it
Ah,
he's dabbling with other religions and Buddhism in particular, and trying to? I mean, today we may be more tolerant and more accepting of it. But what like sparked off the trouble then?
And the funny thing is that all this was discovered about 5 or 10 years after he died. The
I see.
wheels of the Vatican, they move, they grind slow, but they grind exceedingly fine, as they say. So they found some of the things that he said objectionable, because it's like, in some cases, it was almost like he was saying that, say, Christ is not the only way to God, or other things are also equally important. So maybe they felt he was irreverent about the Catholic Church or whatever. So, because one of the things they said is that it would lead people away from God, and that I found people like, there's a lady who came, Tamara Crane. She came to interview me as one of person known to Tony, and
Tony.
she's a deeply spiritual person. But there's a difference between being spiritual and being religious. Like, she's not Christian, or she doesn't attend church or anything. But there were people like this from all walks of life who definitely came closer to God.
I guess which what you make of Christianity also depends on which part of the world you are in. So in a multi religious multi faith context like Asia, the way we see Christianity would be very different anyway. But that's just an opinion. And
No, no, there
yeah,
was an Indian theology. I can't get his name. I think Father Samuel Ryan, and he
Samuel Ryan.
straight away said, that the Vatican and the West, they are suspicious of Eastern philosophy.
Hmm.
Yes, suspicious. There were a lot of others,
Cliff,
the East, who had got into trouble that time. There was a Carmelite priest from Sri Lanka also,
just a bit of a
was
glitch with the sound, Cliff. Just a bit of a glitch with the sound.
banned about
Uh,
the same time as Tony.
hmm.
And so that's when Samuel Ryan
Cliff,
spoke up.
Cliff. Just a bit of a problem with your sound. I don't know if you can hear me loud enough, but
You don't
give it
understand
give it a sec.
East enough. So you get
Oops.
a little suspicious. So when they're not sure, then they rather err on Frederick Noronha not be the views of nation. Put on his books. It was like to. I can hear you.
Uh, yeah, now it's better. Now it's better. I think there was a
Okay.
bit of a glitch with the sound. If you can just make a point again about the suspicion towards Eastern approaches or Asian.
About Samuel Ryan.
Yeah,
Samuel
yeah.
Ryan said that in general, the West is a little suspicious of Eastern philosophy and Eastern spirituality. So I think a lot of people came closer to God as a result of Tony DeMello. In fact, I wanted to write a kind of a rejoinder, and I thought it makes no difference. Tony must be laughing all the way, to whichever chamber he is in heaven, and thinking, ha ha ha, Clifford, just see what they've done. They've actually banned me. He would be thrilled about it. Because Tony is not important. His books are not important. Important thing is for you to find your source. Like he used to say, I'm dancing my dance. Whether you pick it up, whether you understand, it's I'm doing my thing. In that sense, it's very much like the Gestalt prayer. I do my thing, you do your thing. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations.
what
He
some
had a lot of
conservatives
that also.
what some conservatives might call relativism, and something which is not desirable. But anyway, that's a different
Hmm.
debate. That's a different debate.
You also
Having
did your BPH, Bachelor of Philosophy, because
no,
you
I didn't.
sound
I
like
didn't.
you
No,
sound like my professors in philosophy.
Most people suspect, but I didn't. I didn't enter a
Yeah.
seminary. I wanted to, but that's a different story altogether, and we'll go off on a different tangent.
Mm.
Having said that, of course, the interesting thing is that I keep finding Tony's books all over the place. I'm an avid collector of Goa books. You can't see them because it's hidden this way. I've got like 3,000 books related to Goa. Don't ask me why I'm so regionalistic, but I love
Mm.
collecting books by Goans and Goan authors and
Do you
things like
have
that.
this one? I think I
Yeah, of course,
sent you a copy.
of course, of course. Hold it a bit
It's
before
probably
the
somewhere in
camera.
your library.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is very much
Yeah.
there. And not only that, I've picked up a lot of Tony DeMello's books at second-hand sales, and I collect them with a lot of avidness. Even if there's more than one copy, I'll make sure I keep them. Because here's
Mm.
an interesting guy. I mean, he may not be known in the land of his ancestors or whatever, but he's someone who really made us think a lot. So you edited this book. You edited this book, and that's the book which you are showing us. I'll do
Yeah.
a small screen share so that. Is it still available online or what? How
That's it.
how
I
should?
think it's out of print. I got, I think, the last copy, last two copies.
Oh
And
my
I'm
god!
sending one of those to the person who wrote the foreword for my book.
So it's called The Happy Wanderer,
Yeah. Anthony
and it's a
DeMello,
tribute.
SJ, The Happy Wanderer.
Yeah, a tribute to the late, yeah, Anthony de Mello SJ. Fair enough. Interesting, very interesting. That was the first. The second was Not a Serpent, Not a Rope. Very catchy title. Then what is it?
Yeah,
Tell us.
that's actually from one of the stories. There's a, the standard thing where a person sees on the road and thinks it's a snake. But in the when he found it was neither a serpent nor a rope. It was a string of diamonds.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the stories in the book. But I put the stories without a moral. I remember a French author who was ready to translate the this book into French. When I asked if she would translate this, she didn't quite agree with my philosophy. So I said, "That's okay. You don't have to do it then." But I was very
Uh,
strong. Even now, when I get a book, even a story on WhatsApp, I edit it. I remove the moral or any lesson or sermon, as we call it. I remove that and send just the story. You make of it what you want to.
so Cliff, you have traveled all over the place and have influences from all over the world, including Burma and Pune and all that. Tell us, sorry, Burma and Belgaum. Tell us a bit about those things.
Actually, I'm influenced by Burma only. How do you say, by osmosis? I've never been there. We are nine children. Six were born in Burma. Five were born in Burma. But I was born after dad retired and came to Belgaum because of our studies. That was the reason he came to Belgaum. But
This is
dad
the
had the
60s.
interest here,
This is
then
the
he was
60s.
always telling us stories.
60s or 50s? Sorry for
Yeah, I was
interrupting.
born in 51. So yeah, he,
Yeah.
he came soon after the war. He retired and he came to Belgaum. But he had sent the family ahead from Burma, and he got caught there. He had got a commission in the short service commission in the British Army. He was the British Telegraphs, so he got a short service commission as second lieutenant, then lieutenant, and he also made it to captain. But he was one of those who trekked. You
Yeah,
mentioned you've got La Saligao people, Yvonne, and all those. I think the whole family trekked in their case, but dad was alone. Fortunately, the family was already safe in Belgaum. So we would always get Burma stories, you know, Burma stories. There were a lot of Burma stories. So that's the influence of Burma on me. But there are two of us, my sister and I, who have never been to Burma. And when she went to Thailand recently, this sister of mine, there's an elephant ride, with a bridge over the river Kwai.
yeah.
That's there in Thailand still. So they went on an elephant ride, and then they told her this is the Burma border. So she requested the Mahout to take 10 steps into that and come back. So she could say that she also had been to Burma. But I'm the only one who hasn't been.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Belgaum is what they call a one horse town. I believe your own mother was there. Or was she in Hubli? She was in Belgaum
Both
as well.
Belgaum and Hubli, both, both,
Okay,
both. It
okay.
was a
She must
railway
have.
center. It was a railway center. Many people went there for
Yes,
education.
yes, yes.
Dharwad also.
Yeah. And lots of Anglo Indians. So many of our own people changed their names, no, to Smith and ferns and stuff like that, because
True.
you had a better scope of promotion if you were Anglo-Indian.
In the railways in
Yes, in the
particular.
railways. In general, in British India, it was like that. But Belgaum was a one-horse town. Yes, everyone knew
Yes,
everybody else.
I see.
Anybody who was anybody went to St. Paul's School or St. Joseph's Convent.
This
And
is in
even
the
now,
camp.
when St. Paul
You're talking
boys
about a
meet,
camp. Camp.
it's camp. Yes, no,
Yeah.
no. We had people from all over, but we always
Okay.
knew everyone where they lived, and you were always identified by a house, red, green, gold, or blue. So with Joe Gomes, oh, Joe Gomes was in red house, and Rosario Cardozo the greenhouse one. But wait, there were two. One was on Picket Road, one was near the Billet Saloon. But that's how we knew each other. You meet a you know, Belgaum was the center of the universe.
In the sense?
Any
In what sense?
Belgaum boy would be the center of the universe.
Cliff, a little bit of a noise with
Yeah.
sound. A little glitch with your sound. Let me try.
It's like Belgaum was everything. Wherever you go, they will talk about Belgaum as though Belgaum was everything. Even now, people who are from Belgaum will tell you. Belgaum was the best place in the world.
Cliff, you know what? I
Any
think,
better?
yeah. You know, your every 3 or 4 minutes, your Airtels or whatever you're using seems to be glitching a bit, and then it comes back to normal. So that's okay. But I've just missed the important point you were making about Belgaum being the center of the world. So if you could repeat that, please,
Yeah.
because I'm
Belgaum
sure
being the center of the universe.
universe. Carry
Generally,
on,
if you
carry on.
meet an ex-Polite, and I'm sure you know some of them,
Of course,
like, Agnel Remedios
Agnello
and all
Remedios,
this hockey
Derek
gang.
Almeida, yeah.
Yeah. They will always talk about Belgaum as though there's no other place like it. And their school like there's no other school in the world.
It's a close knit
And
community. It's a close knit community, and one can understand that. No,
very, very close. Now, for instance, now everybody knows now Bennett Pace, who was on the Konkani group, he is now he is now going about as the oldest surviving ex-Polite. I
I
mean,
see.
that is the way we identify him,
Yeah,
you know?
that's your claim to fame. That's your claim to fame.
Yeah. Bennett Pace is the oldest surviving ex-Polite. And people from Belgaum, from St. Paul's, they've played
Olympics,
hockey for
Olympics.
Kenya and Canada also.
Yeah,
Canada's ex Belgaum. Hubert Pereira's son was the captain of the Canadian hockey team, right? Now he's never been to Belgaum, but the Belgaumites will claim,
true.
they'll claim that as their victory. The Belgaumites. His father never played hockey, I think, but he was the captain. His son was the captain of the hockey team. Yeah.
Now the sound is fine till we go into our next glitch. But before that, I want to hear about Clifford and psychology.
That's
Clifford
it.
and
See,
psychology.
I've always loved psychology and counseling. I mean, from the time I was very young, and so it's like been a passion with me, and I've always wanted to be a counselor, and that was fulfilled for me when I met Tony DeMello. It was, he saw something in me which others hadn't seen, and he saw the potential in me, and I had no, I still have very little formal training in counseling actually, except for that one time with Tony in that I told you that Gestalt therapy session, and that was just a group therapy session. I've not had a formal training in counseling, so whatever I know today is something I picked up from books, practiced it till we got it right. listening. And now we have YouTube, but when I was studying, there was no YouTube. So you would read books like, say, Gestalt Therapy Verbatim would show you whole tracks of a whole session that was taken with Gestalt with Fritz Perls. Or take, even Carl Rogers' books like A Way of Being and so on. So I've always been interested in counseling. But when I left the society, there was no scope for counseling. Even now, people say I'm not mad. I don't need a counselor, which is a completely strange reaction to people.
Yeah.
Everybody needs counseling. Everybody needs counseling, you know, but not everybody wants it. So
Or is willing to accept it.
yeah, they're not now. There is more because now schools have counselors and so on. So, but even that is given like a punishment. No, see, if you don't behave, I'll send you to the counselor. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I've been trying to. I don't have influence with the government or with government school, but I really wish that counselors would have an agenda where they would have preventive. You know, you, you can't meet if you have one counselor in the school. You can't even if you meet
Tony, we are going through a slight glitch.
every
We are
student
going through a slight glitch. Tony, one sec,
in
one
the
sec.
whole year, you won't meet every student.
Tony, Clifford, just a sec. We
So
are going through a slight glitch
you
with the
need
sound.
to have something like preventive, some workshops, some kind of attendance days instead of just being waiting, killing flies, hoping somebody will come to you. You know, so I do a lot of I give short courses in counseling, which is practical.
Okay, now we seem to be back with you, but we had a small glitch, Clifford. We had a small glitch
Uh,
with a few minutes, 2-3 minutes every few minutes. Connection seems to be playing up a bit. Sorry, you were making this point. I missed this point about Goa needing counseling. Carry on.
yeah, no,
You should be fine.
everybody can do with counseling, but the people who come out from our colleges also, they you can't help it. No, anything, I think any trade, once you actually get into work, you'll find that what you learned in college didn't really was it's very theoretical, no. So I have very practical courses, 3 days, 5-day courses that give people the experience of how to really do counseling. I mean, it's like hands-on. I supervise them and show them. We take examples and so on. So my courses are quite successful. And in that sense, I never thought that online would work, but actually my work has actually increased after the lockdown
I see.
because we willy-nilly had to adapt ourselves to online. People can't meet you offline, so now you get people from different parts of India and all who are accepting counseling. And also we have this free service, so especially because of the lockdown it came up.
I saw your brochure about the free service. What exactly does it
Yes,
involve? What exactly does it
in
involve?
fact, that's, I think, maybe the first ever poster in Sashti, right?
Correct, in Shasti
Yeah,
Cockney. We'll talk about
but
that
we
later. But
we
that
offer
was relevant.
counseling from different parts of India actually, because I've got my students who have finished with me. They have they are Telugu speaking. There is Kur, the language of Kur. There is Tulu. There is Kannada. There is Malayalam. So all these languages, and we have got people from Maharashtra, from Kerala, who have wanted counseling. Then there are students of mine who were in Hong Kong and Dubai, so they are also now giving back. So that's why we have the free service. Yeah.
And you all are offering counseling in these languages to people from these regions with the proper
Yeah,
skills.
yeah. Yeah, not people from the regions, people who speak that language.
who speak that
Because
language.
because you can get someone from Canada who wants something in Marathi,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
So the last point, Cliff, could you tell us about, you mentioned the first poster in Shasti Kokni. I know that you have a passion for this dialect. Tell us about it.
Actually, I didn't have a passion for it because I always thought talking Sashti was wrong. It is not the correct Konkani. Till I saw
Fanaticism.
your group which
Fanaticism.
you started, and the first day I heard Dr. Ida speak, I said, "Oh, you mean it's okay to talk like this?" And so I used to never talk Konkani before. I used to have a kind of S.J. Borkar's book I had followed. Because ironically, I'm
Candid,
much more
so-called,
fluent. I
so-called
was much more
candid.
fluent in Marathi
Yeah.
because I had a full year of it. So after this, believe me, the Konkani I speak now, even and I write better than I speak because I remember my mother speaking, and I would say, "How would she say this?" And so I get it. Somebody, even when you ask a word, sometimes on the group, you ask what would be the word for this, and somebody was asking in another group, they were asking what's the word for bench, you know, and I know that the smaller one, the small one in which you sit in the kitchen, that's called a banki. For example, I didn't put it there, but I remember all these things. I remember the people around me, how they used to speak. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Cliff. I'm here. The thing is that every 3 or 4 minutes, there is a slight glitch in the sound of your sound. So I'm trying to move out of the screen so that you can maybe the bandwidth, there's less bandwidth used. Anyway, we'll carry it on. There is a slight glitch with the sound coming through, with Cliff's sound coming through. It gets sorted out by itself in a few seconds, but meanwhile, it's causing interruptions. And he's narrating. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah.
Now it's perfect.
Freeze, I know that the fish people, the fish wives talk, how the shopkeepers talk, and so that's how I picked up. I mean, I become fluent with Sashti. But that the posters, the handiwork, actually, I sent it to him for editing. That's Alan
To whom?
Mascarenhas.
Ah,
Alan Mascarenhas from Veli.
Alan.
Yeah, I think he had a similar experience to mine, where he began to see the value of speaking Sashti, and so he really speaks freely now. And I think
Interesting.
he puts all those this voice messages and all that, which people enjoy.
True. Very interesting. So in this talk of a little over 40 minutes, we've discovered many faces of Cliff W DeSilva.
Mm.
DeSilva, sorry.
Yeah.
And these include being a book editor, being an author, being a co-author, being a psychologist, being a Jesuit for a little while, and also being a fan of Shasti Kokni. I'm sure there are other things which I don't have a clue about, so we've not yet
One
discovered those.
interesting thing that my wife says, she says there's no such thing as an ex Jesuit.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Maybe some other time we can talk, Frederick, and I'll tell you about this
Sure.
book which is coming out one of these days.
Tell
That's
us
on
now only.
counseling.
Tell us now. Why some other time?
Um, it's called Diaries of the Heart: Experiences in Person-Centered Therapy. So while I explain person-centered therapy, I give practical examples of how people have been affected by one or other thing, like one or other aspect. Like, for instance, I have a chapter on empathy or another chapter on unconditional positive regard. And we get actual experiences of people. Of course, we can't give their names because it's confidential. So, but they actually tell you how they have been influenced by different, not me only. There are other counselors in their life, person-centered therapists, who have influenced them or who have changed their lives, and how the changes are quite permanent. So it's a kind of a teaching book, but I think even lay persons would benefit from that book because of the basic person-centered therapy, the philosophy, underlying
I-
philosophy.
Cliff, is the field of psychology in Goa sufficiently developed, or what more could be done?
Well, Goa University must be the only university in the whole world which doesn't have a psychology department. I had heard that there was one of the vice chancellors didn't like psychology, so he never permitted it.
But
I
even
heard
at
that
the
now it's
college
going to
level,
come.
who is teaching it at the graduate or postgraduate level? I think there are a few courses now.
No, they are postgraduate, but they're all self-finance courses. No,
Yeah.
Kamal College has, St. Xavier's has, and Nirmala has.
Okay.
Nirmala calls it a wellness course.
Yeah.
But at the college level, it's there. Every college offers a psychology, but for post graduation in counseling, there are 3 places in Goa.
I see.
But we
And
don't.
your
You need it at the university level, where
research
research
and
and all
yeah.
will be done. See, when it's a self-finance course, where's the motivation
Yeah.
to even do your
It's tough.
doctorate?
It's tough to sustain it in the first place. That's true. That's true with the self-finance
No,
courses.
if it was yes, and see if it's a self-finance course, that person is not going to become permanent, is he? Or is she? She's not going to become permanent. You'll not get a full contract. You'll be always on contract.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it your case that Goa needs psychology at this point of time more
In the
than more than
self-finance courses.
yeah. No, I was just asking, does Goa need psychology? Does Goa need psychology at this point of time, and why? Another slight glitch with the sound coming through. Hello,
And
can you hear me? Cliff?
no, I'm just not like Goa as a
Yeah,
basket
yeah,
case.
no,
So
no, it's fine, it's
everybody,
fine. Carry on. Now the sound is perfect. Carry on. Yeah,
yeah,
carry on.
you were asking, does Goa need psychology more than any other place? You mean?
Any other place, or
Not particularly, but everybody needs psychology.
because of the massive
And
social
it,
transformation that's going on here? Because of the social transformation? No,
because of the
massive social transformation that Goa is facing.
see, it's not just counseling that's needed. I think it should be there at the university level because there has to be research. Where's the research?
Hmm.
And we have a sociology department. Many of these problems are actually sociological problems, not psychological. And but there should be research, shouldn't there? So you need someone who has a genuine love for these things, somebody who has the passion to take that forward. It won't. You had, for example, take Konkani. I remember it came to the forefront after Dr. Olivinio Gomes came in there. You need someone like that. He had come. He was a civil servant and then came into academia, but he had the passion. You need someone like that. Research has to be done, and that can be sustained only at the university level, can't it?
Yeah. Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for all the time. I'm sorry that there were some glitches in between
yeah.
with the sound, but I'll have to edit the video. We've had some people watching it
Okay,
while
I'm
we were
glad you're
talking.
editing because if it's going live like that,
No, the live stuff has already gone live, so the mistakes are already there online. So people are going to grumble and they're going to pass comments saying that we didn't hear bits of it, but I'll have to drop out those bits and then we'll hopefully get together much more.
and probably something. Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much for your
Thank
time.
you,
All the very
Frederick.
best.
Thank you very
Real
much.
pleasure. Real
Yeah.
pleasure.
God bless.